Mr. President.
Senator from Nebraska.
Mr. President, I ask unanimous consent to enter into a colloquy with the senior senator from Maine.
Without objection.
UNRWA is a completely irredeemable organization. Since October 7th, we have seen how much Hamas has infiltrated UNRWA, the United Nations Relief and Works Agency for the Palestinians. In fact, some have called UNRWA a front organization for Hamas. UNRWA staff participated in the October 7th attacks. Some participated in the attacks directly, some helped with logistics. One hostage alleges that her captor was an UNRWA teacher. Another UNRWA staffer was actually a commander that participated in an attack on a kibbutz that left 97 people dead and took 26 hostages. Regrettably, this does not come as a surprise. Because of previous UN investigations into UNRWA, we knew this was true before the October 7th attacks. We knew that UNRWA was using schools to store weapons and launch attacks on Israel. We knew that their textbooks preached hate toward Jews in Israel and glorified martyrdom. I introduced this amendment because denying an organization like UNRWA that is so deeply embedded in Hamas is wrong. Our U.S. taxpayer dollars should not be going to fund an organization that is essentially a front for Hamas. This chamber's ultimate goal should be to permanently defund UNRWA, defund it the way the Trump administration did. I've spoken with the senior senator from Maine, and she and I have agreed that we will continue to fight to ensure that future appropriations to deny UNRWA access, we will assure me that she will continue to fight against future appropriations to deny UNRWA access to U.S. taxpayer dollars. This underlying bill does that for 1 year, and that's a start.
Mr. President.
The senator from Maine.
Mr. President, I very much appreciate the comments of the senator from Nebraska. I agree with him that UNRWA cannot be the conduit for humanitarian aid. It is clear that it has been infiltrated by Hamas, and indeed, Israeli intelligence indicates that specific employees of UNRWA were involved in the brutal atrocities of October 7th when Hamas attacked Israel. In addition, it is estimated that many other employees of UNRWA are sympathetic to Hamas or affiliated with Hamas. So American tax dollars should not be going through an organization that has been involved in some of its employees in a terrorist attack, one of the worst terrorist attacks that we have seen. A terrorist attack that resulted in the worst loss of Jewish life in a single day since the Holocaust. How could we possibly allow American tax dollars to be used by this organization? Now, this is not to say that there should not be aid. There's differing views on that issue. But we know that there are other organizations within the UN. There's the UN's High Commissioner for Refugees organization. There's UNICEF. There's the World Food Organization. There are many other organizations. For me, Mr. President, what was most compelling is when I learned that Hamas had a major communications and command control center underneath UNRWA's headquarters. And there were additional Hamas organizations that had locations in the tunnels underneath UNRWA schools. Now tell me, how could UNRWA possibly not have known that this was occurring? How could they not have seen the tunnels being built, the air conditioners being brought in, the computers being installed, their electric rate going way up? It is just not conceivable that UNRWA was unaware of all of this. And as my friend from Nebraska has mentioned, we know that far too many of the schools that UNRWA is running in Gaza teach hatred in their textbooks, teach hatred not only of Israel, but of Jews in general. Totally unacceptable that American tax dollars would go to this organization. There are alternatives. And that is why in the supplemental appropriations bill, which I know the presiding officer feels so deeply about, as do I, in that bill, we defunded UNRWA. And we said that dollars from previous appropriations could not be used by UNRWA. And in the bill that is incorporated and before us today, the State Foreign Ops Bill, which is part of the 6-bill package, we also defund UNRWA. And we extended it beyond the end of this fiscal year. We extended it till March of 2025 to ensure there wasn't a gap and give us time. And I do pledge to my colleague from Nebraska to continue to work on this issue about which I feel so strongly. So I will continue to work with him, and I very much appreciate the opportunity to engage in this colloquy.
Mr. President,
Nebraska.
I'm grateful for the Senior Senator from Maine's commitment to defunding UNRWA, and grateful as well for her pointing out that there are other ways to provide aid to Gaza. I would also like to point out that when the Trump administration denied UNRWA funding a few years ago, the world did not come to an end. So I do believe, as the Senior Senator from Maine pointed out, there are alternatives. And with her commitment, and I appreciate, for that reason, I will no longer seek a vote on my amendment. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator from Maine.
Mr. President, first let me express my appreciation to the senator from Nebraska, and I will ask unanimous consent that a story from the Wall Street Journal on this very issue be submitted for the record. And I would note that this story estimates that approximately 10% of UNRWA staff in Gaza has links to the Hamas militants.
Without objection.
Thank you, Mr. President.